All right, I did a little test of a dovetail. I'm going to give it a try on the real table. So fundamentally, this would be the top. I did a test of the roundover on this piece of scrap. So actually three passes to make this. A half-inch cut with a router bit, a straight roughing gauge to make a half-inch trough, and then a pass down each side with a dovetail joint. Then for this piece, I'm just going to be using the table saw, tilt the blade to 15 degrees, and make a cut to get the dovetail, and then a straight cut to cut out the piece, cut this edge here. And then those, actually, and also there'll be a little bit of relief on one end, since the dovetail, the router bits will make a round over here, like a rounded end. I don't want to have any of that exposed, so having this little, having that little cut off will hide that bit. So this does actually slip in here. Like that. Of course, it's cut a little long. You get the idea. And it'll make a reasonably tight joint. It's going to be a challenge doing these long legs because they have to, these supports on the table, because they have to stand vertically as I go through the table saw, but I have a jig to hold everything, and we'll just go super slow and steady to make those cuts. And fortunately, it is just one cut on each side, flip it over, another cut on each side. So I got 4 cuts for each piece, standing vertically. So we'll take that slow and steady. Anyway, that's going to be, that's a job for another day. We may get to it tomorrow, might have to take a day off. But anyway, next time I'm back, we'll start work on these dovetails. Okay, we're getting set up here to do a blind dovetail. This is going to be done in 3 passes and will require a couple changes of setup as I go. So the first pass is using a 1/2-inch router bit. That'll do most of the trenching in the blind dovetail. So I've got the router set up in the router table, coming up 1/2 inch, 2 inches away from the edge of the leg, with a stop so that it'll only go in 2 1/4 inches. So that'll be the first pass. And I'm going to make a cut on this leg, then I'm going to make a cut on the other leg. I'm going to move this block over to here and come back to the other side so I can get this side done and do the same thing with the other leg. And then we'll change the bit to the dovetail bit, move the fence back 1/8 inch, and use the dovetail bit to carve out one side of this blind dovetail. Again, do one pass with this leg, one pass with the other leg, move the block around, do the other side of the leg, one pass. Then I have to move the fence back this way 1/8 inch and do a pass on, 4 passes on the 4 cuts of the leg. So moving this block halfway. So a bit of fiddly stuff. I've marked it out. I did a test joint. That's going to work. Then once we have that done, then I'm going to use the table saw to cut the dovetails on the ends of the spanners that go between the legs. So I'll set the camera up so you can see this happening. So that little episode with the router gave us this initial trench. So I'm going to move the stop block here over to this side, and then I can run the piece in this way, and we'll get the trench cut in this side. All right, set up with the dovetail bit, move the fence back 1/8 of an inch. So we'll come in now, make it a little pass. It'll just take off a little slice down the side of one of the trenches. So going through the router table, we now with the dovetail, we've got one side done. The inside edge on on both legs, both sides. So I just moved the fence, adjusted the fence a little bit. So now we'll do this outside edge, 4 passes. So 2 passes with the block here. I'll move the block over here and 2 passes, and we'll have finished up the blind dovetails. And there's our blind dovetails. Now I know somebody out there is saying, you know, you can get a Kreg jig for that that'll do a fantastic job. So yeah, $300 later I probably could. So, however, this worked. A couple little minor flaws here. I made a little boo-boo there. And I made a little boo-boo over here. I moved, as it was trenching, I moved that bit a little bit. But since these are blind dovetails, nobody is going to see that. So next step is cutting the dovetail on the ends of the spines that go between the legs. That's going to be a table saw operation. I know people are going to panic over that. What are you doing on the table saw making? Yeah, I'll survive. And I'm using a jig. My fingers are going to be safe. Don't worry. All right, here we go. I have a jig here that holds my spar perfectly vertical. I have taken the time to make sure both spars that we're using here are exactly the same dimension. They've gone through, obviously the table saw, I put them through the thickness planer in both dimensions, so they are exactly the same. And I've got my blade set up here to be 15 degrees off vertical, so it's a 75 degree bevel, which matches what's on the bevel, the dovetail router bit. I've set the jig so that I'm going to make this first pass. That'll make the left side of the cut, then I'm going to make the right side of the cut. Everything is still attached. I haven't made any cuts across here yet, so nothing is going to come flying out at me. I'm not going to have any risk of jamming or anything. This is just a through cut, and then when these cuts are made, then I can flip the piece down flat and cut it, make a vertical cut to cut off the dovetail extra pieces. Okay, let's do this. Okay, I'm going to do some checking here to make sure. Just kind of eyeballing it. I think the head is a little bit wide, so I'll need to move this jig in a little bit closer to the blade or make some adjustments to get this right. But we're going to just double check that with measurements, fine tune it, and make another pass. I made an adjustment of about 1/16 of an inch, so I'll do 2 more passes and that should match up with our dovetail. So I've got the dado dimensions, or not the dado, the dovetail dimensions exactly what I want them to be. I've now set up the table saw. I've got the blade vertical. Okay, and there is our piece sitting in its dovetail joint. I cut off the shoulder just a little low, leaving the head high, so I had to make a little adjustment to it and a little bit of tear out on there. There's a little tiny bit of play in that joint. I'm not sure if the glue is going to fill that in, so my thought is I will drill a hole right in there, maybe split that, and then drive a finishing nail in, or perhaps a wood dowel, and just to kind of expand that joint a little bit and tighten it up when I'm ready for final assembly. Toying with that, not sure that I want to do it, but just toying with the idea. Anyhow, I'm happy with that result. The trick, of course, is going to be the final joint at the other end, making sure that it is, like, there's no room for mistakes on that final joint. So it's got to be cut exactly to size. A little tricky. All right, I'm going to go away and get the other dovetail ends put in place, and I'll come back when I'm ready for that final assembly. All right, we've got our dovetail joints cut on the ends of these spars. The second one worked out a little better than the first one. Just kind of learning a few little tricks to fine tune them as we go. So I'll show you what I'm doing on my fine tuning techniques when we do the other ends. So I can now cut these to length. They're going to be 42 inches face to face. Face to face, I mean from this edge, not this edge. So this face length will be 42 inches with an extra inch on each side for the legs. That means that it's going to be 44 inches from outside of the leg to outside of the leg. And a 64-inch table, that means we got 10 inches on either end. And set that up initially just kind of on the bench, on the work table there. That seemed to give appropriate dimensions. So, step 1, cut this, cut this. Step 2, put it in the jig to cut the dovetails, so 4 cuts to make there. Step 3, we'll make the vertical cut here to cut off the dovetails, and then, what am I at? Step 4, 5? Do the final fitment on the other leg. All right, we've got our dovetails cut. So now we'll get into final fitment. One of the tricks I've been using here for this final adjustment is getting some 80 grit sandpaper and wrapping it around a file. And that lets me be a little bit more aggressive with the sandpaper than the file would be rather, but the file gives me that perfectly flat edge so I can maintain, if I have to sand here, I can maintain the exact angle of that dovetail surface. So I'm going to set up the, just see how these guys fit in our next piece, and I'll come back when I have something there. So I'm just using my sandpaper over the file here just to take off this sharp edge. I'll give it a test fit. I'm expecting it to be a little too snug, so I'll probably come back with the file and just do a little bit along that tapered edge there. Let's see the fit. Yeah, a little long actually. I'm gonna have to take about a 32nd of an inch off the end of this dovetail tongue. So I'll just run that through the saw quickly. Okay, and that will go into the joint. It's a little stiff, so I'm just going to sand that slightly. Perfect fit. And there we have our legs with stringers. I'm going to set this up on the workbench so you can have another look at it. Okay, so there's our table, dry fit. Dovetailed, stringers are dovetailed in place, top is just placed on. Yeah, I'm really happy with that. Here's our dovetail joints. That one needs to go down just a smidgen more. This is an existing crack in the wood, wasn't caused by the dovetail joinery. As you can see, most of the cut was on this piece of wood. That one fits perfectly. Happy with the fit on the other end. So next step on this piece is going to be we're going to do a 1 inch round or ½ inch round over on top and bottom of this so that it is the same edge appearance as the legs. Talked about that with our customer. Customer thinks that would be a better look too. So that's what the customer wants. That's what we will do. So I'll put the round over bit in the router. We're going to do that by hand, and I'll set the top down on top of the work table to do that. All right, I got the top on the work table. I've turned it upside down, so we'll doing the bottom first. Got the router set with the round over bit set to the right depth. Got some hearing protection going on. Dust filter running. Let's give this a go. I'm going to go around this clockwise. Yeah, it made a little bit of sawdust. Heavy glitter. That's some heavy duty man glitter right there. Okay, we'll flip it over and do the other side. All right, now to do some sanding. Now, some of you may be wondering why I went clockwise and not counterclockwise. I went clockwise because that would give us a climb. It's called a climb cut as opposed to an up cut. The climb cut means that the bit is spinning in a clockwise direction, so it has less tendency to tear chunks out. If I'm going counterclockwise, then the bit will, if it comes across some grain, it can actually tear the wood out. So, hence the clockwise motion. All right, let me clean some of this mess up that I made, and we'll get into sanding.